Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Budish. I am the Director of Transit Choices. We are a coalition that is working very hard to advocate for an improved public transit system in Baltimore City and the Baltimore region. We do hold monthly meetings that are free and open to the public. It is important, we feel, to communicate relevant information to the public regarding what is going on in the transportation. What I would like to do is to kick off our meeting with our first guest speaker. And may I say that we are delighted to have Jim Ports. Jim is the Transportation Secretary for the Maryland Department of Transportation. And his presentation is titled MDOT, Workforce Development and Future Workforce Ready. Jim, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much, Robin. And of course, it's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. We are going to take a little different tack because I know Holly's been on here several times and has talked to you about the different initiatives that we have going on. But I think the timing of this one is really important to talk about what we're looking for workforce. So I'm excited to talk about the successes of Maryland Department of Transportation and the successes that we've had with workforce development, as well as our plans for the future. And of course, as you shot out yesterday, some of the challenges that we're all facing, not just MTA, but also nationwide and with the school system on trying to attract operators. So obviously, MDOT's mission is to deliver safe, sustainable, intelligent, reliable, and equitable transportation solutions across the state. And by the way, the equitable word was just added by me a few weeks ago from a recommendation from one of our diversity teams. And to accomplish these goals, we need a team that can respond and adapt to these dynamically changing times. I don't have to tell anyone, you know, the job market has changed significantly over the last couple of years. I mean, we're seeing things that we've never seen before in the job market. And we felt that at Maryland Transit Administration and across MDOT, we need to do things a little differently. So, you know, in the past, we never had to sell our jobs or our positions. Before the pandemic and the great resignation, as they so call it, MDOT MTA had more applicants than openings, thanks in part to our terrific benefits and as well as the environment and the state's pension system. But today, there are more jobs than people to fill them, and we're seeing significant turnover, just like the private sector. So in terms of recruiting, things are very competitive out there. So we have to adapt, and we're exploring new recruiting options and shifting our hiring philosophy to actively engage those that we serve. So there's one area we revamped our hiring process, which has a lot of demand. That's light rail and metro operators. Now, Robin, I know you just sent that press release that we sent out yesterday to your organization, and I will get into that a little bit, but and I'll be happy to answer questions later if you have any questions about it. But historically, these jobs are filled internally from our bus operators. That's part of the union contract. And right now we're experiencing some significant shortfalls, which is obviously impacting the frequency of our light rail service. So this week, we announced some adjustments to make sure we can provide reliable service on light rail with our current staffing levels. Holly and I thought it was more important to be reliable than it was to try and fulfill a need that we just couldn't meet. So this is a decision we made, and we're adapting to how we recruit, and we're still let bus operators know about the light rail and metro operator positions, but now we're also posting jobs externally. And we're taking part in job fairs and advertising on social media. And we believe this will help build a pipeline of potential candidates and increase our system reliability. I mean, we've got to have people in the seats to be reliable, right? And quite frankly, another challenge and opportunity for MDOT MTA involves new technologies like electric or zero emission vehicles to our fleet. And as you know, we're working across MDOT on a transition plan to move our organization toward goals for electric fleet. And at MDOT MTA, we've committed to converting 50% of our transit buses to, we call them ZEVs, by 2030. And that's about 350 buses out of our total fleet of 700. And we've already announced plans to buy 7 zero emission battery electric 40-foot and 60-foot articulated buses. And we're going to be making these moves now, but we're also making the move at other agencies too. For example, BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, we're buying 8 new zero emission shuttle buses. And this move towards electric vehicles has a direct impact on the workforce development because, we're going to need to retrain or find newly trained people in the next generation of employees to maintain and operate these vehicles. It's no longer going to be a combustion engine, right? It's going to be electric engine and parts. And so it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. And so that's no easy feat either. And the move to EVs is an example of how MTA will need to recruit, educate, and constantly train new employees and our outstanding existing workforce. So that's going to be a challenge, but we'll get through that. And I've always been a big believer in apprenticeship programs and internships to help cultivate tomorrow's workforce. I believe the apprenticeships are great because from day one, these employees can receive pay and benefits while they get training and hands-on experience. As a matter of fact, a little known fact, I came up through the trades. I was a licensed journeyman gas fitter. And so I understand apprenticeship programs extremely well, and I want to start these partnerships. And, quite frankly, one of those partnerships that we're really pushing really with several universities and community colleges is the apprenticeship internship programs. And for example, the Community College of Baltimore County is developing an apprenticeship program for maintenance workers. And we're going to get those participants that, they're going to see our system. They're going to work as repairmen and repair women and work their way up through the ranks. And we also operate MDOT Fellows Program at UMBC as well, and Morgan State University Graduate School Internship Program. As a matter of fact, a funny situation, I told Robin I got in at 11 o'clock last night, but while I was in Boston last night, I ran into the president of UMBC, Freeman Herbrowski. So it's just ironic. And, a few weeks ago, I was at Morgan State University with U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the campus National Transportation Center. And at the center, students and faculty work on research that benefits the entire transportation industry. It's a great program. And it shows Morgan students that a career in transportation is real and obtainable option. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to the dean a couple of weeks ago because I've been back and forth at Morgan so much. I said, hey, Dean, if I keep this up, you're going to have to find me an office at Morgan because I can't keep making these trips all the time. He said, oh, yeah, we could do that. So we are really creating great partnerships with our university system and our historically Black colleges and universities to boot. But we need more programs like this. And in the past, the General Assembly, in this past General Assembly session, MDOT worked with legislators on new apprenticeship pathways program. As a matter of fact, I personally worked with, I would say, Senator and Ambassador Rosapep, and he helped us get new positions. And by the way, trying to get positions from the General Assembly, new positions for hiring is nearly impossible. But working with him hand in hand as a former legislator, as you know, and I served with Senator Rosapep, we had a great understanding, a great relationship, and we were able to get 50 positions so that we could start an apprenticeship program at MDOT for these trade positions. And that's just one more step to help provide opportunities for young people who can not just start a job, but start a career. And again, these types of programs depend on strong partnerships. And I'm gonna get you a little plug, Robin. I think that, our partnership with you and your organization and Jimmy has been tremendous. And we really look forward to continuing to work with you and expand on that. And I also want to say that we recently worked with Baltimore City Mayor's workforce development team for a virtual hiring event. Potential candidates heard about jobs from people firsthand with knowledge of those positions, and we were able to answer questions about job expectations and what to expect. And the event was geared towards recruiting bus operators, but MDOT MTA is hoping to use this approach for other jobs like mechanics, electricians, and all these other entry level positions, including, by the way, police. And we're going to continue our partnership with the mayor's office, obviously, and we value that. Another approach that we may try at MDOT MTA is one that we recently used at State Highway Administration. I know you guys are probably familiar with the college sports and what they call signing days. I was never that good, so I never got signed. But SHA held 2 signing day events for job applicants in Frederick and Greenbelt. And we had between 15 and 20 jobs at each location, and the events drew between 30 and 50 people at each site. So it was a great atmosphere. And quite frankly, these signing events are geared to cutting through the red tape. And if the candidates showed an interest in coming on board in these trade positions, we hired them on the spot. And we had shop positions, laborers, maintenance. Of course, we do mowing, cleanup, and filling potholes, which, by the way, I've done myself personally out there with the crews. About 10 candidates who signed are set to start next month, and more candidates are in the pipeline. So we're really excited about that program, and we look forward to expanding that throughout MDOT, including MDOT MTA. A few other things that we're trying to emphasize is that we have all kinds of positions, from operators, mechanics, engineers, planners, you name it, we pretty much have it. And I bet, quite frankly, there's a position at MDOT MTA if there's something that you or some of your folks that want to do. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned law enforcement. One of the categories people often don't think about is law enforcement. And we do have a robust law enforcement, not just at MTA, but MDTA. And so that's a great, attractive career path with a lot of positive community interaction. In fact, again, we're partnering with the Mayor's Office of Employment and Development for some Facebook Live sessions to recruit entry-level positions with MDOT MTA Police. And while we're ready and willing and able to train applicants with modest experience, we're also recruiting workers who are switching gears in their careers and heading from the private sector to the public sector. Quite frankly, we've had quite a bit of success in the past with that, and we're looking forward to doing that also. As a matter of fact, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that our very own MDOT MTA administrator, Holly Arnold, actually started with us as a consultant before switching to state service. Robin, as you know, I ran transit for Hartford County for about 7 years, and Holly was actually my grant specialist way back when she was just a very young lady. She's still young, but she was very young back then. And look where she is today. So it can happen to anyone. You can find leadership throughout our organization. She grew within the organization. And now she's leading one of the largest multimodal transportation systems in the nation. So can't say enough good things about her. And she's doing a great job. And of course, look, anytime you give me a microphone, I gotta make a shameless plug. And the plug is we're hiring. And we're looking for folks who are passionate about the value of the service, the courtesy and reliability. And when they interview, MTA managers make sure candidates are aware of our customer-focused core values, which is safety, respect, equity, reliability, and of course, a dedication to constantly learn and improve, because the world we live in now is very dynamic. So when it comes to recruiting bus operators, it doesn't hurt that they're well paid, earning the 5th highest pay in the nation. And our comprehensive benefits package also helps seal the deal. So if you know anyone who would like to be a great addition to our MDOT family, please tell them to apply. Now, I know you're all anxious to hear from Joe and Teresa talking about Greater Baltimore Transit Future campaign and our shared aspirations for our transit network. You know, the GBC has partnered with us, supporting MDOT initiatives like the statewide transit plan, our 50-year vision for public transportation goals and strategies in every corner of Maryland, our substantial investments in state of good repair efforts, which have gone a long way in cutting the backlog of repair and maintenance needs across transit modes. As a matter of fact, we owe something to the Maryland legislature tomorrow on that. You'll be seeing that very, very soon. Our expansion of transit services on emerging employment centers, like routes that we created to bring workers to Amazon and Trade Point Atlantic. And of course, transit-oriented developments, which, as we all know, can spark tremendous economic growth and create jobs. For example, the one that I was very involved with, Kaiser Permanente Medical Center at the Lutherville Timonium Light Rail Station. You know, I worked with Kaiser to complete that deal. It's a 25-acre mixed-use TOD, and it helps people who are in the city, need medical services. They could take light rail and get their services, and we call that life's opportunities. But again, we also have a mixed-use TOD proposal at Reisterstown Plaza Metro Station, and we're excited to be leading the way on these and many others that we have hopefully in the pipeline. The committee has also been very supportive of initiatives such as the $148 million Kirk Avenue Bus Division project, the North Avenue Rising, where we're working with the city and others on new dedicated bus lanes, bike facilities, light rail link, metro sublink, station upgrades, streetscapings, and improvements at major bus stops and sidewalks. You know, GBC and other stakeholders have been key partners in the East-West Transit Corridor study, examining ways to improve service between downtown Baltimore and Baltimore County, and all the way, quite frankly, to Ellicott City. The 7 proposals developed as part of the study include everything from heavy rail, light rail, and rapid bus transit. And yesterday we held the second of 2 virtual meetings to get feedback, and we're seeking additional input through August 1st. So as you all know, we all like to hear from everyone. It helps us build on our successes. So feel free to add your value. And we all know that it's critical to work together and listen. One of the things we need to make sure we do is listen to community needs, because that's, if it's not good for the customer, it's not good for us, quite frankly. And the initiatives like these are important not only to our mission to evolve our transit system and project state-of-the-art service, but also because they help with our workforce development and recruitment. You know, when we talk about benefits of working with MDOT and MTA, the best sales pitch we can make is to show our customers and our communities that we're dedicated to improving and modernizing our system. And whether it's right here and quite frankly, right now, because we do need to do things quickly. We want them to be part of that. And again, I'll make a shameless plug, but if you know anyone that wants to be an operator, anyone that wants to get into trades, again, not for a career, not for a job, but for a career, please, please, please share that with us. And quite frankly, Robin, with that, I'd be happy to take some questions if you like.
Thank you, Jim. Meredith, if we could go back to full screen, that would be great. Let me just see what's happening here. Okay, wonderful. Jim, thank you so much. For all of the meeting attendees, you may either share a comment or feedback in the chat, or you may raise your hand if you would like to be on camera and ask Jim a question directly. I'd like to kick off the Q&A by saying really that, you know, Transit Choices wants to congratulate you, Jim, on behalf of, you know, the fact that that press release that went out yesterday is something that we, Transit Choices, have been sort of pushing for ever since the issue came to light with respect to diminished light rail service. And as much as it's disappointing that light rail service needs to be adjusted, we think it's really important to communicate to the public what is happening, the reasons why it's happening, and more importantly, you know, proactively, what is going to be done to resolve the issue. So thank you so much for at least, you know, helping us to share with our, you know, transit public the expectations of what's going on with service and with the really shortage of operators that's, you know, happening nationwide. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let me just check to see if there are any hands up. I know that there are. Let's go to the chat. Okay. Let me start with Judy. What is the likelihood of finally getting the red line?
Well, that red line is, I guess what I would say to that is one, it comes with a lot of controversy, as you know. Many people support it, many people are opposed to it. It comes with some challenges that people don't even know about. For example, there's a lot of fill down in that lower area or the southern portion of Baltimore City that was filled with what they call copper. And copper is a fill material that was used. It is highly volatile, extremely contaminated. And when you, for example, if you want to build a tunnel there, you're going to expose that to water. When it's exposed to water, it heaves up. Now, they didn't mention that in the previous analysis, but I can assure you that it is a very difficult product. I'm trying to remember the company that did it. I can't remember off the top of my head, unfortunately, but it heaves up. And so even at the port, Maryland Port of Baltimore, where that copper was in the ground, it started heaving up, and it pushes cement right up out of the ground for about 3 or 4 feet. And we had to cap that with about 8 feet. So these are challenges that occur that people don't know about. We are looking at alternatives. As I mentioned, we're on the street right now looking for comment for east-west corridors and stuff. And so whether it be a light rail initiative or bus rapid transit initiative, those things are gonna be determined by the community and community comments, and of course funding availability.
Thank you. Another question which comes from Liz is MTA providing assistance with potential driver candidates with their CDL training?
Yes. So obviously we have a shortage, and if they have a CDL permit, then we will help them get their CDL license. And of course, they have to have not just a CDL, but they got to have a passenger endorsement and what's it, the air brake endorsement or something, but they need other endorsements. And so we can help them achieve their overall license once they have their CDL permit.
The next question or comment comes from Klaus. Well, it's nice to have workforce development pipelines. It doesn't solve the immediate crunch that needs to be solved to have acceptable transit service. Will there be an extraordinary short-term effort to bring on the operators needed to make the existing service reliable and attractive? In this climate and energy crisis, reliable and attractive transit is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, well, okay, so one comment I would say is it'd be short-sighted not to look long-term. You have to look both long-term and short-term, and we're doing both. As I mentioned, well, let me back up. So one of the reasons we have a shortage is because of the union negotiations. Now, people don't understand this, but you heard me mention a few minutes ago that we always got our light rail operators from bus operators. That's actually part of the union contract. We were only, according to the union contract, allowed to get drivers or operators that were bus operators transitioning to light rail operators. Okay. So when people criticize us for not moving quickly enough to recruit other people, that's why. It's a union contract that we could not go outside and recruit people. And so I'm glad to share that with you now so that we can educate people on that issue. But we did recently, Holly was very good at working with the unions in getting the permission to start recruiting from the outside, as I mentioned. Keep in mind that, and let me explain some of the challenges with the union on that. So in the previous union negotiations, when we had bus operators that would transition to light rail operators, the bus operators that usually transitioned were ones who had a lot of seniority. And so when you have seniority, you get good picks, you get good hours, you could get good routes and all that stuff. But when they transition to light rail, they go to the bottom of the barrel again. Okay, they don't have the longevity or seniority in that operation. And so what happens is a bus driver or bus operator will come over to light rail. They lose their seniority. They don't get as good at hours. They don't get the good routes. And then about 6 months later, they leave and go back to be bus drivers. That's why we have, that's one of the reasons why we have a shortage. So again, Holly working with the unions, and we did this, by the way, your person asked about short-term. That is a short-term solution to where we can go and get operators from the outside. Now, that also has some challenges because it takes 8 to 12 weeks to train them. You can't train them overnight to take, I don't even know how many ton operation and run it along rail without training. So people out there have to understand, one, the challenges that we have with the union negotiations, but then two, the challenges with training people and recruiting people from the outside. And as you mentioned, Robin, we're not the only ones that have this problem. This is a nationwide problem. As a matter of fact, it's also a problem with school bus operators. So this is a problem. Workforce demands are a real problem that, I'm going to say it again, we're looking both short-term and long-term because we think that's the right process to go through.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I would like to ask something, Robin.
Sure.
Jim, there's money coming in from the federal government under the Infrastructure Act for transit improvements in regional areas. Mm-hmm. And there are two projects that are talked about. One of them is providing light rail service coming from both directions into Penn Station on a regular basis. I'm sure you realize that now if you come in from the north, you have to get out at Mount Royal and wait for a train that goes into Penn Station. This doesn't make sense in terms of having a system where you use light rail to get to Penn Station. So obviously, apparently the infrastructure is there to develop a 2-track system. Can we use federal money? Can we be working now to get federal money to help us design a system and implement it to bring light rail into Penn Station? And let me ask one other project that's on our minds. People have proposed that we build MARC train stations at Bayview and in East Baltimore and run the MARC train out to Martin Marietta. And by connecting that to the station in the MARC train station in West Baltimore, you would at least create a possibility of people taking rail from West Baltimore out to Bayview and other job centers, which would be a substitute for the Red Line. In a sense, it would be a rail substitute for the Red Line, transporting people from East and West Baltimore to jobs. Is there any way with either of those two projects that we could be working now to tap into federal funds through the infrastructure program?
So let me just back up a hair with the infrastructure program. So I've seen a lot of numbers being kicked around. I think GBC talked about $1.7 billion coming to transit. Well, while that number is true, most of that money is already part of our formula funding, which is already in our CTP, our Consolidated Transportation Program. So let me give you the real numbers of quote extra money. We're getting about 300 million of new monies from the federal government. Okay. Now, the way the federal government touts this, because it's all part of our formula funding, in other words, they increased our formula funding, they use the big number when they talk about the money that they're sending to the state. But that big number is part of most of it is part of our six-year plan, our CTP. So it's money we already have and it's already allocated, okay? And so the extra money that the federal government's sending down is about 20% higher than what our normal formula funding is. And that equates to about $300 million for transit. Now, $300 million isn't going to do both of those projects, I can assure you. It would take more federal monies along with state monies, because there's usually matching. It's usually 80-20 matching funds for these projects. And so two things, they've been looking at that Bayview area for a long time. We've been working with the railroads on some of those projects for many years. Part of it is getting rid of that curve that slows everything down. Now, I will tell you, Jimmy, that I took transit when I worked for the federal government. I took it from Martin State Airport, as a matter of fact, the one you're talking about, down to DC. And so it is a good way to go. And as far as the light rail connection with Union Station, we can certainly look at that. I don't have an answer for you right this minute, but again, it would probably take more funding from the feds and the state to accomplish that goal. Now, with the Baltimore Link, we did recognize that a lot of the system was not connected, and we did connect a lot of it. But these systems were developed many years ago, actually under Mayor and then Governor Schaefer, and so this is a system we have in place. So any expansion would take community involvement and long-term planning and design. So I can touch base with Holly on a couple of these initiatives that you're bringing up and give you more information on where we are and what the potential is moving forward.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Our next presenters are Joe McAndrew, who is the Vice President of Transportation with the Greater Washington Partnership, and Teresa Birge, who's the Director of Policy and Research with the Greater Baltimore Committee. They are going to be speaking with us today and presenting on Baltimore's transit future, the game plan for a modern transit system. Welcome, Joe and Teresa.
Thank you so much, Robin. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off and then pass it on to Joe. Wanted to let everyone know that the GBC and the partnership this week did launch our new initiative where we are aiming to bring together the region's business community and all of our employers with the many partners that we have in the region to advocate for a modern transit system for the Baltimore region. The region's business leaders do recognize the importance of an adequate transit system to allow our region to compete in the global economy. As many of you know, the GBC has always championed a strong mass transit system in the region for a number of reasons. It's good for our businesses and it's good for our people to be able to get to their jobs. Our members know that to succeed in business, a high-performing transit system is vital to moving goods and services and ensuring they can tap into the best workforce. I certainly appreciate the focus that Secretary Ports has been putting on workforce because that is one of our concerns right now. We all know that with relatively low unemployment, we need to increase workforce participation and ensure that their jobs, our jobs, everyone's jobs don't remain unfilled if there are people who could do it if they could get to work. Many who don't participate in the workforce right now do it because of a lack of reliable transportation. Particularly businesses with 24-hour or off-peak shifts need better transit for their employees. As we've been talking about, service is drastically curtailed on the weekends, at night, and sometimes even during the week. So that does make it more difficult for folks to get to work. This is part of the GBC, and I know the Greater Washington Partnership feels the same, firm commitment to supporting diversity and inclusion in the planning and funding for transit projects. Thank you so much, Secretary Ports, for talking about how you are now including equitable in your efforts. That's very important to us, and I'm glad it's important to the Department of Transportation as well. In today's economy, we know that we need accessible, affordable, rapid, modern, and fully networked transit system. Great cities have great transportation systems, and we're not there yet. Many of our communities, like we said, are being left behind, and we are working to get everyone on equal footing so that we can be that successful city and region. We do have a unique opportunity with the American Infrastructure and Jobs Act that was passed last year. And we are more focused not on the formula funding, but on the ability to compete for the discretionary competitive grants. And the business community right now, we're a little bit concerned that we don't have enough projects in the pipeline to be able to show the federal government that we are ready, able, and willing to compete for those competitive grants. So we do need to be ready for this opportunity, and that's a big part of what our mission with this is. We need to ensure that policymakers know that all of us are partnered in the call for this visionary new transit system so that we can help our region join the best in the country and take advantage of all of these opportunities. And with that, I will send it over to Joe.
Sorry about that. Good morning. Saying hello from Richmond, Virginia, down here at the Greater Richmond Transit Company's headquarters for a meeting after this. So Robin, Jemmy, thank you for having me, and Secretary Ports, thanks for the great presentation. I think we are excited at the Greater Washington Partnership to be working with GBC in lockstep to help plant a flag for the community, hopefully, to join with us and speak with one voice, speak a little louder, and accelerate the pace of change on the many items that Secretary Ports and Administrator Arnold are working on to create a better transit system. I think it's critically important. We think it's critically important for the employers, for Baltimore residents that don't have access to a car, to be able to get to a job in the city or outside of the city, as well as the students to be able to safely and reliably access an education, because that's our future, right? Their ability to go to school, get educated, and ultimately take our jobs in the future is really important. So transit's critically important to the success of the region and to our economic future. What we're calling for today, I don't think is going to be super objectionable. And as the Secretary hinted or referenced, there's a lot of work in flight. So what we're asking for are items that are afoot, and hopefully with a wider tent of leaders, both at the grassroots and up to the C-suite level. And with our elected partners, we're going to be able to be, keep focus and deliver results across jurisdictional borders and across election cycles. So first, we are asking for MTA to address its repair backlog. You can't build on a system that has a shaky foundation. And so, GBC and the partnership supported Delegate Learman's bill recently to allocate funding and resources to the backlog. We know the Secretary and the Administrator are doing good work to reduce the backlog. So thank you. Operator shortages, I'm not going to belabor that, but we can't have a great system without the folks that are going to be able to get us to jobs and opportunity. Next, we've got a lot of job centers in Greater Baltimore that are not accessed by transit or not accessible by transit. So trying to figure out ways to model the great success I think that MTA and the local lots have done to enhance access to sites such as Trade Point Atlantic. A lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity. Can we do similar types of activities to increase access to other job sites like Fort Meade, or which is the largest employment site in the state of Maryland, but has limited transit connectivity. So thinking about that, and those are opportunities hopefully in the 1 to 2 year time frame that we can see growth and gains. Next, we need as a region with our elected leaders to come together on a path towards how do we enhance our shared ownership, decision-making, and funding of our transit system, which I think is really important. What's the path forward? Is it an authority? Is it an oversight model, et cetera? But, we've studied it. BMC's done a great bit of work on this front. The partnership and CMTA funded a study from the Eno Transportation Center. I think that, we have a solid transit system. It is operating, but I think it can do more with greater investment and shared ownership if we can strike the right balance there. Next, once we've done all that, I hopefully will be in position with the funding needed to move forward on a growth plan. Baltimore's transit system has largely stayed somewhat stagnant in terms of expanded service since 1997, the last time the light rail system was expanded. They have double-tracked the light rail line and recently did good work on the Baltimore Link program with limited plus-ups in funding. But how can we look at not just planning for an east-west or north-south study, but actually moving to implement those in short order? And are there additional expansions that we're looking for in the system, such as what Jimmy had indicated, or others? But I think we need to align behind an actionable 10-year growth plan, and then work together to identify the funding and the path to realizing it. A key priority for the partnership and a key priority for GBC is expanding. We've got a great commuter rail, regional rail system with Mark today. And I think with targeted investments, especially with the $66 billion coming out of the federal infrastructure bill, we've got a huge opportunity to take what we have and really kind of flip it on its head and expand the regional rail system, connect Baltimore to DC, Northern Virginia, and the rest of the state with faster, more frequent, more reliable service. And then finally, transit-oriented development. There's a huge opportunity. I think that there's a lot of understanding from the development community as well as from others of what exists. Baltimore has many stations today. Greater Baltimore has many stations today, but maybe has unrealized potential near its stations in terms of proximity to development, mixed use, and affordable and accessible jobs and opportunity. And so if we can catalyze growth near those nodes, we not only maybe increase ridership, but we increase access to key destinations and jobs and opportunity. And the hidden secret is you also increase your bottom line for the tax generation, et cetera. So it's a unrealized gain as we see it. So we can't do this alone. What we're calling for, I think, is hopefully not too objectionable, but what we know is that when we, as a region and as actors, come together, speak with one voice, and rally to support things, we're going to be more successful, right? Elected leaders are going to understand that they've got the support from the community to do big and bold things, and that's really kind of what we're lining up to support. So we want this to be done in an inclusive manner and with partners. We are very appreciative of Transit Choice's support of the campaign and promotion of the effort and partnership of the effort. If you are party to an organization that's interested in supporting, or you'd like a presentation such as this to any of partners that you work with, we'd be glad to do it. At the end of the day, we're trying to raise awareness, build consensus, and then push forward together around key items like speaking with one voice on what's the best east-west preferred alternative, and how do we move that forward with haste so that we can enter that project development pipeline sooner rather than later. So those are the types of opportunities that we have, and I think we want to do it in partnership with everybody here and others throughout the region. Ways that you can support, we'll share some emails. You might have them already, but please reach out. We've got collateral. We'd love to work with you, whether it be presenting, discussing, and operationalizing, or amplifying this work would be greatly appreciated. I'm going to ask, John Hillegas here to maybe drop some links in the chat as well, so folks have access to some of the news articles. We launched this effort on Monday, and I think received some decent press and some decent hits there. But access to the campaign website, press release, et cetera. I think that what we're trying to do is hopefully galvanize support and educate the masses if we can. Just a few examples. So I will stop. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Teresa to close this out. But at the end of the day, success is not going to be done by any one party, and I think that includes Secretary Ports and Governor Hogan and Administrator Arnold. They're doing solid work, and I think if we can all rally together to support the effort and speed up the progress, I think with our local elected leaders and our civic community and our business community, I think we're just going to be far more successful. We're going to ultimately realize the change that I think many of the folks at Transit Choices have been pushing for years. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you so much, Joe. I also would be remiss if I didn't recognize a GBC board member who's also the chair of our Transportation and Mobility Committee. John Lariat has joined us today, and he has been very instrumental in moving this whole process forward. And want to thank you, John, for your support, and ask if you have anything you'd like to add.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll just say briefly, first of all, some of you may know that I chair the city's Bicycle Commission, which is obviously part of a need to grow transit network in the city, last mile and all sorts of other things. And you've had me speak on that before. So thank you. And I do chair and have chaired for some time the GBC's Transportation and Mobility Committee. I just wanted to say a quick word about this. It's not so much what the business and institutional community represented by the GBC and the Greater Washington Partnership are supporting, but it's that they are supporting this. And what I mean by that is although the details will be filled in, and obviously there are some controversial issues, the list that's been put before you is relatively non-controversial, unless you're opposed to transit, in which case I guess it is. But for most of us, it's not controversial. But what is meaningful is that the business and institutional communities have come together through these two regional organizations, the GBC being regional, the partnership Richmond to Baltimore being sort of super regional, to come together. Everybody in this group and in this advocacy effort speaks with a different voice and sounds a little different and comes from a different perspective. And sometimes, for better or worse, it matters what business card or V card you're carrying. And the prospect for me of mega employers, mega institutions in this region speaking in their own voice, not just through the GBC, not just through the Greater Washington Partnership, but in their own voice, with their own CEOs, with their own business cards, is very, very powerful. And that is how this campaign is designed to go. It obviously wants everybody to participate. And I do encourage you with organizations and logos and so on to send them and to be supportive, because this will be a broad-based campaign. But what is different about it, and fundamentally different, and I hope a game changer, is that you have employers with tens of thousands of employees who are trying desperately to get from one place to another in order for the economic engine of the city and the region to work. And that is just not happening in a satisfactory way. So when you have those kinds of folks and the people, I'm just, if you've seen the materials, you will see, if you haven't seen yet, op-eds, there's a campaign, and I'm talking about JP Morgan Chase and T. Rowe Price and MedStar and CareFirst and EY and a whole bunch of banks. I mean, these are well-known institutions, well-known businesses who speak for and on behalf of tens of thousands of people who are just trying to get from one place to another. That has not happened before in a way that, at least that I've been satisfied with. It's not happened in a way that anybody should be satisfied with. It is going to change. And I think this campaign is going to make a difference as we head into the next sort of political cycle. Obviously, we'll have a new governor and so on and so on. So I'm very excited by it. I'm really grateful to the GBC and the Greater Washington Partnership for working together in this way. I encourage you all to keep track of it, to join it, and to cheer it on, because I think it is going to make a difference in the advocacy we're all undertaking. So thanks for a few minutes, Robin. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, John. We do have, let's see, does anyone raise their hand that would like to speak directly to Joe and Teresa? Let's see, there are some questions in the chat. Klaus, did you want to share?
Yeah, well, I'm focusing now on the second part of my chat comments. We're still on the first part of Jim Port's presentation, but I really welcome the engagement of the employers and the business community, because obviously transit riders and the employers have, in that case, a really shared basis, which is interest in good transit. And a few presentations ago in Transit Choices, the term Twin Cities was coined between Baltimore and Washington. And I think if we can somehow rally around this idea that particularly Baltimore will be stronger if it sees Washington not as sort of the other over there, but as a part of a twin city arrangement with many jobs and good potential of access if we improve MARC connections and do the extension of MARC deeper into Washington beyond Union Station, then I think that is a term that we should embrace as the future goes and as planning of transit goes.
I couldn't agree more. We've been Klaus and I ran into each other in San Diego at a conference recently, and had a good discussion about it. But I think at the end of the day, going back to maybe a little bit of the conversation or the intent of this effort is that there's a lot of money, available through the federal infrastructure bill. We need, as a region and as a state and as elected leaders, need to align behind what the priorities are that we want to get out of it over the next 5 years. There's no guarantee that that new baseline is going to stay where it's at. It could go back down 5 years from now, right? So we have 5 years to try to ramp up, reach those competitive discretionary grants to do transformational things. Frederick Douglass Tunnel, Baltimore Penn Station, triple tracking, 4 tracking through BWI. Those open up huge opportunities to speed up, accelerate trains, but also run more trains between our key destinations. That's just on the regional rail side, but we need to be thinking about how we can do similar types of activities, I think, on the regional transit front in Baltimore. And so that's really a little bit of, the opportunities are there. It's the question of what we're going to go ahead and reach forward and grasp, together.
Thanks, Joe. We also feel that it's essential, critical to work collaboratively and to, really, have different voices at the table, to be able to talk about this, versus working in silos. So, we applaud both, you and GBC for bringing together, a diverse group to start to really address and plan for the future. So great job on that. And Transit Choices will continue to support and to proactively, amplify, what this campaign is about and why it's important and what people can do, to participate. Jim, you have a question or a comment?
Are you talking to me, Robin?
No, we have Jim.
Okay.
He's on mute. Let's see if we can.
There we go. I got it. Okay. Good morning. A couple of thoughts I have sitting out here in Parkville at Oakcrest Village, now that I'm a senior living in a senior community. And the thought, Joe McAndrew, since you're down in Richmond, is that here on the northeast side of Baltimore, we have a high appreciation of our proximity to Philadelphia, which is actually quite a bit closer than Richmond to our area. So I think there has been talk about connecting MARC to SEPTA. I think that needs to be elevated as an important issue. SEPTA has been more interested in doing that than MTA or than MDOT. But I think it's an important thing to keep high on the agenda. The other thing I want to talk about is something we never have talked about, and I really have never talked about in great depth through the management here at Oakcrest, which is part of Erickson Retirement Communities. We have a lot of employees that work here that come up from the city, and there's no bus service to Oakcrest Village, and that also means there's no bus service for the residents here to get around the region. I think that's true of most of the retirement communities around Baltimore. I never paid attention to it until I moved here and recognized that it's a big issue. That employees have trouble getting to this location. The community has to run shuttle buses to the end of the line on the MTA routes. We're on Walther Boulevard in northeastern Baltimore County. I think that's something that would be helpful. I'm going to do what I can to get our resident advisory committee looking at this issue and inviting MTA to come out here and talk to us about what potential solutions there might be. But I just throw that out there because there are other communities that are much smaller than we are that probably also have a shortage of access for public transportation.
Jimmy, I might be able to take that one on if you don't mind. As you know, I was in the House of Delegates for 12 years and actually represented that area, Oakcrest, and I was over at Oakcrest an awful lot, working with the seniors. Matter of fact, my mother and father-in-law were over there not too long ago. But so I would say a little over 20 years ago, MTA talked about providing bus service to Oak Crest. The community was opposed to it. As you know, Joppa Road is probably not quite built for that. It's a very busy area. And so what the compromise was with Oak Crest was to do, as you mentioned, take shuttles over to Hartford Road at that park and ride area, and then catch the MTA bus service from there. And the reason that was done is because one, as you know, the last mile is always a big challenge. And when you talk about partnerships, part of the partnership is working with business to provide that last mile. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're actually partnering with Oak Crest, a private establishment, to provide that last mile service to the MTA system, so that folks can get up and down through Baltimore and the surrounding areas. So that's how that was done.
Who are you talking to here at Oak Crest? Who are the people here that you talk to?
Oh, I'm talking, like I said, that was over 20 years ago that we did that. It was Beth Kreider at the time, who was at the meeting. I was at the meeting. Al Redmer was at the meeting. We had talked to the executives at Oak Crest at that time. I don't know that there has been any recent conversations on that, but as I mentioned,
Okay,
you know, when you talk about partnerships, this is exactly how it's supposed to work.
right.
This is what we talk about. And so to have it established that way and then say that it's not working, well, you know, that's a little curious, but that is exactly how it's supposed to work. We are supposed to work in partnership. We work with the college systems, and I think we need to do a better job with that, because a lot of them can provide the last mile. We work with the hospital systems that we try to partner with to provide some of that service with the last mile. And so we need to form or establish those partnerships with large corporations, large businesses, Oak Crest and hospitals and others, and schools, universities, to get the continued service with MTA, but then provide that last mile in many cases from those private sector organizations.
Thank you, Jim. I think that this has just not been looked at here for a long time. And there's been a lot of development in the area of Walther Boulevard. And so there are a lot of other people that live in this area that are underserved by public transportation.
Oh, I'm
But
very
I
familiar
will-
with the area. I lived in Perry Hall for 28 years
Well,
and
good.
represented that area for 12. So I'm very, very familiar with that area.
Well, that's good to know, because the fact that we have a friend in the MTA like you is important.
Thank you both. Jimmy, did you want to close out with a final comment?
Yeah, this is for Joe. It's really wonderful to see GBC and Greater Washington Partnership working together, bringing the business community together. And it's great to have Jim Ports here, because if we can bring business and government together, maybe we can accomplish something. But my question to Joe is, I really like your 6 points, but how do we go from this kind of generalized statements of goals to specific projects? And what's the process? Who's going to be the leadership? How's it going to happen? For instance, the train stations into the light rail into Penn Station, or the expansion of Mark Train. How can we make these things happen? Is Joe still there?
Is Joe
I-
with us?
I think he might have had to leave for another meeting at
Okay.
at 9:30. But what I'll say is that as we move along, I think that what we will be working on that, it's not the initial push, but through the fall, we'll be working on our legislative priorities and things like that, so that we can come together and speak with one voice before the legislature next year, advocating to obviously a new administration, but the fact that we would all be talking together, and I mean, because we aren't the ones who can do it, right? You can't, I can't. It's really, you know, the agency and the elected officials who make those determinations. So we want to put ourselves in a good position where they will listen to us and that they will focus on it, and that we can offer them suggestions that they try and accomplish certain things and do things a certain way. You know, we're looking at trying to find some help to, you know, do a mock-up 10-year plan, not the actual 10-year plan, but what could happen. So we are working towards those things, but right now we're focused on making sure that the people who will be making decisions know that we are all in this together, and we do all think it's a priority. And we think that that in itself will help push those in charge to make decisions that align with our 6 pillars.
Thank you.
With that, we are going to conclude the meeting for today. We would like to extend a special thanks to our wonderful guest presenters. We know that their time is very valuable, so we're always appreciative that they're willing to spend part of their day with us and with you. And to all of the participants, we say this often, but we can't say it enough. We thank you for your continued support, for the work that we're doing. Without you, you know, we really couldn't make the advances that we have done. Now going on 10 years, it's hard to believe. So we'd like to wish all of you a wonderful day, a very happy and safe 4th of July, and details regarding the July Transit Choices meeting will be forthcoming. Take care. Bye-bye.